is not in terms of answering the question of should this be allowed, but just like what is the best way to deal with someone being a jerk? Is the person basically just having a like repeat behavior of like causing a lot of issues? So looking at it more at that level.
And its effect on the broader communities, health of the community, health of the state. It's tricky though, because like, how do you know there could be people that have a very controversial viewpoint that turns out to have a positive long-term effect on the health of the community because it challenges the community.
That's true. Absolutely. I think you want to be careful about that. I'm not sure I'm expressing this very, very clearly. Because I certainly agree with your point there. And my point isn't that we should not have people on our services that are being controversial. That's certainly not what I mean to say. It's that often I think it's not just looking at a specific example of speech that it's most effective to handle this stuff. And I think often you don't want to make specific binary decisions of kind of this is allowed or this isn't. I mean, we talked about, it's fact checking or Twitter's community voices thing. I think that's another good example. It's like, it's not a question of is this allowed or not? It's just a question of adding more context to the thing. And I think that's helpful. So in the context of AI, which is what you were asking about, I think there are lots of ways that an AI can be helpful. With an AI, it's less about censorship, right? Because it's more about what is the most productive answer to a question. There was one case study that I was reviewing with the team. Is someone asked, can you explain to me how to 3D print a gun? Mm-hmm. And one proposed response is like, no, I can't talk about that. Right? It's like basically just like shut it down immediately. Mm-hmm. Which I think is some of what you see. It's like, as a large language model, I'm not allowed to talk about, whatever. But there's another response, which is like, hey, I don't think that's a good idea. In a lot of countries, including the US, 3D printing guns is illegal or kind of whatever the factual thing is. And I was like, okay, that's actually a respectful and informative answer. And, I may have not known that specific thing. And so there are different ways to handle this that I think kind of you can either assume good intent, like maybe the person didn't know and I'm just going to help educate them, or you could like kind of come at it as like, no, I need to shut this thing down immediately. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like I just am not going to talk about this. Like, and there may be times where you need to do that, but I actually think having a somewhat more informative approach where you generally assume good intent from people is probably a better balance to be on as many things as you can be. You're not going to be able to do that for everything, but that you were kind of asking about how I approach this, and I'm thinking about this and as it relates to AI, and I think that's a big difference in kind of how to handle sensitive content across these different modes.
I have to ask, there's rumors you might be working on a social network that's text-based that might be a competitor to Twitter, codenamed P92. Is there something you could say about those rumors?
There is a project. I've always thought that sort of a text-based kind of information utility is just a really important thing to society. And for whatever reason, I feel like Twitter has not lived up to what I would have thought its full potential should be. And I think that the current, I think Elon thinks that, right? And that's probably one of the reasons why he bought it. And I do think that there are ways to consider alternative approaches to this. And one that I think is potentially interesting is this open and federated approach, where you're seeing with Mastodon. I mean, you're seeing that a little bit with Blue Sky. And I think that it's possible that something that melds some of those ideas with the graph and identity system that people have already cultivated on Instagram could be a kind of very welcome contribution to that space. But I don't know, we work on a lot of things all the time though too. So I don't want to get ahead of myself. I mean, we have projects that explore a lot of different things, and this is certainly one that I think could be interesting. But
so what's the the launch date of that again? Or what's the official website? And
well, we don't have that yet.
Oh, okay.
But
right.
All right. And look, I mean, I don't know exactly how this is going to turn out. I mean, what I can say is, yeah, there's some people working on this, right? I think that there's something there that's interesting to explore.
So if you look at, it'd be interesting to ask this question and throw Twitter into the mix, at the landscape of social networks, that is Facebook, that is Instagram, that is WhatsApp, and then think of a text-based social network. When you look at that landscape, what are the interesting differences to you? Why do we have these different flavors? And what are the needs? What are the use cases? What are the products? What is the aspect of them that create a fulfilling human experience and a connection between humans that is somehow distinct?
Well, I think text is very